Hey there, super friends. Today, let's take a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Nightwing, Batman Who Laughs, and Batgirl. The eye-catching black, white, and blue window box packaging for Nightwing, Batman Who Laughs, and Batgirl is exactly the same as Superman's was, except for one fairly large detail. And that's that these boxes are wider to make room for the collect and connect Batmobile pieces that we see off to the side. Batgirl comes with piece 1, Nightwing comes with piece 2, which is the very middle, and then Batman Who Laughs comes with piece 3. Here's a look at the title side of the packaging, which has the names of the characters with a subtitle to emphasize where the storyline is that each of these figures comes from. And here's the other side of the packaging, which is basically just the window to look in on the collect and connect piece with more information. DC Multiverse, McFarlane Toys. For the back of the packaging, they're all pretty much the same except for the names on the top of the boxes and the pictures in the middle that exemplify the characters that come in the package, along with some pictorial instructions on how to put together the collect and connect Batmobile and a little graphic depicting which piece comes with which character. Also down the bottom, we can see all three figures that make up the collect and connect piece, with another image of the Batmobile. As for the packaging, on a final note, I really do like the look of these new boxes. It's simple, it's effective, and it's eye-catching. Once all three are out of their packaging, here is exactly what you get. And there is a lot to get through in this video, so I'm going to get through it as swiftly but as thoroughly as possible. So each one of these characters comes with that trading card. Each one has the same picture on it as was on the back, while the back of each card also has a short little bio with some of their traits. As for accessories, Nightwing comes with his 2 Eskrima sticks, Batman Who Laughs comes with his big butcher knife and whatever that is. And Batgirl comes with a pre-shot bat grapple and a gigantic gold batarang. Seriously, this thick though. Also, if I'm being honest, I'm not really much of a fan of the whole pre-posed shot out of the bat grapple look. I just really don't like this. Oh yeah, and there's also these 3 figure stands. They're just regular old black round figure stands. They just look like the ones that came with the DC Direct figures back in the day. And here's just a quick shot of each of the collect and connect Batmobile pieces before we put them together at the end of the video. And now that we've looked at all that, let's take a little peek at each figure individually, starting with Nightwing, who the detail for this fella is actually really quite nice. I'm really quite pleased that there are just so many places that I would have thought that they could have just gotten away with leaving there being no details at all or painted the details on, and instead, pretty much everything is sculpted. I really like the basic initial overall look and presentation of this figure. And the face sculpt is actually probably one of the best, if not the best, Nightwing face sculpts I've ever seen for a 6 to 7 inch scale version of the character. The only complaint I have about it is that during the painting process of the lips, a black line that's supposed to separate the two seems to go just a little bit off the rails. But honestly, this is a really fantastic looking Nightwing figure. The suit has this overall textured look to it, so it's not just smooth plastic. There are sculpted details all down the arms, on the bodysuit, underneath the arms, as well as all around and all down the legs. They've even paid attention and given him sculpted detail at the neckline, and they really probably could have gotten away with just painting on the blue deco for the front, that bird on his chest, but instead they've sculpted that on too, as well as the blue detail at the top of his boots. That's all sculpted on as well. McFarlane has even given this fella boot treads. There's also glove details on his knuckles, as well as the little buckle at the top of his gloves. And the nice thing is that they've even included a place to holster his Eskrima sticks right there behind his back. Fantastic. And now on to Batgirl, who, as far as I'm concerned, is equally as impressive. By just looking at Barbara, you can really tell the care and effort that went into this figure, into creating something that would be really detailed and really adult collector oriented. And even though this is definitely not my favorite Batgirl suit, looking at this figure, it's definitely growing on me. It's nice to see a return to the blue, yellow, and gray. And as for that head sculpt, for one, I know a lot of people have said it's possibly too cartoony looking, but really it's meant to look like the artist's work. And honestly, I really like it. Truly, this Batgirl figure, in my opinion, is probably one of the best ones that we've ever been given. Just looking at this Barbara Gordon Batgirl, you can really see that Todd is absolutely conscious about creating something that the adult collector market will absolutely love. I appreciate the fact that, unbeknownst to me previously, the logo on her chest is actually a backpack. I would have not actually noticed that had I have not bought this figure. I don't know, I've just never noticed that it's part of a whole backpack setup, and now the design of the bat actually makes more sense to me. And I really do like the look and design of this utility belt in general, and I feel like Todd has done this look really good justice with this sculpting. Here's a look at her gloves with the little bat on top and the scallops on the side. Here's a look at her boots with actual sculpted details and line work on them, which is very cool to see him put the effort into. And the boots themselves are actually separate pieces. You'll note that they're not just painted on, which, as far as I'm concerned, this really is McFarlane putting his best foot forward. Now, a critique I do have about this Batgirl is that although the cape looks cool, it's pre-posed, and you all know how I feel about the pre-posed capes. I would have rather him gone with cloth goods or even just a neutral posed cape, so that's something that I'm not a big fan of. And next we look at a figure that for some people is going to be the most anticipated figure out of the series, and that's the Batman Who Laughs, a character who, I must admit, I've really enjoyed reading about, right from the beginning of Dark Knight's Metal all the way down to present day. And as far as I'm concerned, this figure looks really, really good. And yes, that goes for the face sculpt too, with his nth metal, I'm not sure if you'd call that a mask or what that he's wearing around his face. He can actually see through it. This head sculpt looks altogether menacing, right along with the rest of his body. There is so much sculpted detail on this guy. It is unbelievable. The attention to detail that was paid to this guy is, in my opinion, truly breathtaking. I really like this guy a whole lot. From the wrinkles in his pants, the fine, buckly, leathery looking detail on his jacket, which, if you'll note, is really a mix of something maybe Batman would wear and the Joker, because it's got what would look like tails, and hopefully you can spy he's got that classic looking Joker vest popping out the bottom. Only this guy's all in black. I can't help but admit that I have loved the overall look and design of this Batman villain right from the get-go, being that perfect mix of Joker and Batman from the dark multiverse. Now as for articulation, it's going to be as follows. So for starters, all of their heads are on rounded ball pegs, and Nightwing and Batman Who Laughs actually have a pretty considerable range of motion. Really, actually pleasantly surprised by how much movement he has. And actually, both of the male characters have double ball pegs, one at the top in the head and one down here in the torso. As for Barbara, she just has the one ball joint inside of her head right there, and it would afford a pretty good range of motion if it wasn't for the hair. I mean, you can't really tip her head back and have the head really stay back. It can go forward quite a bit, but it doesn't stay there because, again, the hair pushes it. So, this is always a thing for range of motion for female characters that have rubber hair. It's just kind of par for the course. They all have a ball joint in the torso, and it's stiff and tight, and honestly, there isn't a huge range of motion with Nightwing's. Batgirl's definitely gets a little bit more, but it could be a little bit better. And Batman Who Laughs, I mean, I'm sure he's got one under that rubber suit, but it might as well not be there. They've also all got a ball joint in the waist, and Nightwing actually has a pretty good range of motion, and the same can be said for Babs. And Batman Who Laughs, well, it's the jacket all over again. They've all got butterfly hinges right there in the shoulders, and this time the Batman Who Laughs can get in on the action because his actually do something, not like the articulation here. They've got bicep swivels, 1, 2, 3, as well as hinges in their armpits. And let's not forget double jointed elbows, because unlike Superman, these guys got them. And finally, they've all got that rounded ball hinge with the hand being on a peg right there at the wrist. Let's not forget that in the groin, they've got those McFarlane inner groin style hinges. Oh, it's the trench coat thing again. While each of them has double jointed knees that are going to do exactly this, the rounded hinges right there at the ankles, which we all know those give you a ton of posability, as well as toes that are on hinges. To articulation. Clearly, as far as articulation goes, Nightwing and Babs are in a league way farther ahead of the Batman Who Laughs. And now let's have a look and see exactly how all three of these figures stack up in size comparisons. So here before you, you see a selection of Nightwing figures, which I figured would best suit the video. Batman Missions, DC Universe Classics, DC Multiverse, and then on the other side, DC Essentials, and Batman Arkham Knight. So for those of you who are wondering, this Nightwing will likely be probably the largest Nightwing figure that we may have ever received. And next we have a selection of various characters from DC Essentials and DC Multiverse from the Bat family. So clearly some of these figures are going to make more sense posed next to him, like perhaps this version of Babs. Definitely I think Red Robin, Tim Drake, actually goes really well, and the same can be said for Damian. I feel like some of these figures really scale very well, while Red Hood and definitely Batman, not so much. Although you probably could fudge it with Red Hood. Now for Batgirl, I've opted to bring in the Missions, the DC Collectibles New 52, and on the other side the DC Essentials Batgirl again, as well as the DC Icons right there on the end. I'm pretty sure that most of us are acquainted with the Icons, as well as the Essentials. So this here should give you a pretty good idea of exactly how big she is. And just who does she scale with out of the Bat family? Well, let's bring Jason Todd back into the foray. I think she looks pretty nice alongside Tim Drake Red Robin, and is definitely size compatible with Damian Wayne, and of course, with the McFarlane Nightwing. Why wouldn't she be in scale with him? They're all from the same set. Now as for scale comparisons with other Batman Who Laughs, well, I can't really do that yet because this is the first one. So in lieu of that, please accept these here two Jokers in comparison instead. This one being Multiverse and this one being DC Essentials. Only they don't have the original heads. Sorry about that. I can't keep my hands to myself. I'm always customizing this and popping heads off there, and my house is a mess of heads and body parts, I tell you. And not in the serial killer way, like Batman Who Laughs, but just, oh man, let's move on. Also, here he is next to the neck of Batman, and also my can of Coke. That's the best you're gonna get today. All right, I'm kidding. Here's Damian. Here's Red Hood, here's a Multiverse Tim Drake Red Robin, and here's a Mo2 scale Batman as well. So each one of these figures is definitely much taller than the previous 6-inch scale figures. I'm okay with that. And finally, it's time to put together that Collect and Connect Batmobile. The Batmobile just snaps together with these little pegs in the one side and these little holes in the other. So we'll just take these two here, snap them together, and then we'll just take this one right here on the bottom and snap it together. Oh, gotta snap the back together too. And here we have it. One sweet looking Batmobile, which measures in roughly at about 7 1/4 inches. One of my favorite comic accurate Batmobiles for sure. I like the fact that it looks like just something you would see in the comic books. I mean, look at them wheels. Look at the bat symbols on there. You can see the brakes on the inside, the exhaust on the side here, but it also has that sort of animated series Batmobile look, which was inspired by the Burton, the 89 Batman Batmobile look. Here's what it looks like underneath. At the back here, we've got the fiery turbine with what looks like to be probably the heat exhaust or something like that at the back. And what's very cool about this is the wheels are actually made of rubber. They're rubber tires, which is very, very cool indeed. So I know a lot of people mourn the loss of the Collect and Connect figure, that you had to collect 6 figures to get the one Collect and Connect figure. But I think that the Collect and Connect Batmobile that only takes 3 figures is a fantastic choice on McFarlane's part. Okay, so now that we've taken the time to look at all 3 of these figures pretty in-depthly, having examined the packaging, the accessories, and all things to do with the figures themselves, like the paint apps, the sculpted detail, and the articulation, as well as their compatibility and size comparableness to other figures in the 7-inch scale, and even some in the 6-inch, what would my final impressions be of these 3 brand new DC Multiverse action figures from McFarlane Toys? Is it worth your time and effort to go and attempt to track these guys down out in the wild? Or should you just leave them on the store shelves as if they were nothing more than human-shaped pieces of plastic garbage? Well, obviously, I shelled out the cash for these 3, and let me tell you, in Canada, at 30 bucks a pop, that's 90 bucks plus tax just for these 3 figures. So clearly, yeah, I like them. I wouldn't have paid for them if I didn't like them. I would have seen them in the window box and been, not for me, and just left them on the store shelves. I really like these guys. And as I said right back in the beginning, I feel like the DC license is in good hands with McFarlane Toys. I know there are naysayers out there who absolutely hate these and think they're garbage. I just don't see it. Sure, they're not as articulated as a lot of people would hope they are, and even myself, there are times when I'm like, I wish that joint actually could do a little bit more. I wish there were more posable possibilities. But that being said, I think these guys are fantastic, and I can't wait to see what McFarlane has in store for the future of the DC license in this new 7-inch scale, and I am super stoked to have a whole new set of figures to collect. I get to start new on the ground floor somewhere. Splendid! Anyway, super friends, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I know you're going to have your own opinions, so feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video that I took the time to put together for you, then please, by all means, leave a like on it so I know I've done something right and that you enjoyed it. And finally, if it is your first time here and you think that you might want to see more of my DC content show up in your inbox, then I invite you today on behalf of the rest of the super friends to join the DC squad simply by hitting the subscribe button and maybe even dinging the bell. That way when I upload new videos, you'll be able to join in the conversation. And with that, I'm done. So thanks for watching everybody, have a DC day and take care.